Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis today, there is a very specific expectation of, like, precision.
Right. Like it's almost mathematical.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like engineering. If you fall and break your arm, you go to the hospital, they put you in an X-ray machine, and that image produces a jagged, bright white line. And the doctor just points at the screen and says, well, there it is. That is the problem.
Right. It's entirely binary.
Yes.
It's broken or it's not broken. You have the bacteria or you just don't.
Exactly. It's clean.
Mm.
And honestly, it's incredibly comforting. We like things to be visible. We like our illnesses to be categorized, isolated, and treated as, well, just entirely separate from the rest of who we are.
But when you step into the world of ancient medicine, that entire framework just completely shatters. That metaphorical X-ray machine doesn't just break. It ceases to exist entirely. You are suddenly looking at a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky.
Highly subjective.
Exactly. Highly subjective and just intensely interconnected.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Because what if the ultimate guide to your health, your exercise routine, your daily diet, and even like how to cure a terrible hangover isn't some modern fitness trend or the latest wearable tech? What if the most intense blueprint for the human body is actually a highly detailed ancient medical treatise?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
Right. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we have a massive stack of source material detailing the common regimen of adults, extracted directly from the writings of the legendary ancient physician and philosopher Avicenna. And our mission today is to completely unpack this dense historical manual for the human body.
It's quite a manual, too.
Oh, it really is. We are going to pull out the most surprising, the most practical, and frankly, some of the most totally bizarre nuggets of knowledge from this text.
It really is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. But I say that in the most fascinating way possible, because this ancient medical philosophy views the body in a way that is radically different from how we see it today. They did not view the human body as a machine with, like, isolated, replaceable parts. They viewed it as an ecosystem.
An ecosystem.
Yeah, a delicate, interconnected balancing act of heat, moisture, and these internal fluids they called humors.
And what blew my mind reading through these sources is that in this framework, every single action you take matters. Literally every action.
Absolutely.
From the volume of your voice when you're having a conversation to the exact direction you are facing when you are riding in a carriage. All of it has profound, cascading physical consequences on your internal ecosystem.
Precisely. You cannot isolate a single behavior. Everything is a medical decision.
It reads like an ancient biohacker's manual, There are pre-workout routines, insanely strict rules about which foods you can and cannot mix in the same meal, and highly specific instructions on exactly how you are supposed to position your body when you go to sleep.
It's all incredibly regimented.
So if you are listening to this right now, whether you are a fitness enthusiast, a foodie, or just insanely curious about how humanity used to understand the human machine, I promise you this deep dive is going to completely change how you view a simple walk in the park, or honestly, even a glass of water.
To really grasp this, we have to start by completely shifting our modern perspective. Before we can even begin to talk about the specific exercises or diets this text recommends, we have to understand the fundamental ancient rationale for why we need to do any of this in the first place.
Right, the core philosophy.
Exactly. And the absolute foundation of this entire health preservation system, the engine of life, so to speak, begins with movement, with exercise.
Okay, so if I go to the gym today, I am going because I want to build muscle or improve my cardiovascular health or maybe just burn off the donut I had for breakfast. But reading this source material, their definition of why we absolutely must exercise is just wild.
It's very different.
Yeah, it isn't about looking good. It is all based on this concept that the text calls the philosophy of waste.
That is the core thesis of this entire medical worldview. The text argues that while diet is obviously essential for preserving health, you have to eat to live, the human body is actually a deeply inefficient processor.
How so? Like, our digestion just isn't good enough.
Exactly. The ancient belief was that no matter what you eat or how perfectly you chew it, the body never perfectly converts 100% of that food into useful energy or tissue. They believed there was always a residual amount left over from every single phase of digestion.
Wait, every single phase? I thought digestion just happened in the stomach.
Not in the ancient view, no. They believed digestion happened in stages. The stomach was the first cooking pot, breaking the food down into a juice called chyme.
Okay, time.
Right. Then that juice went to the liver, which was the second cooking pot where it was turned into blood and humors. And then that blood went to the organs and tissues, which was the final digestion. And at every single one of those stages, there was leftover garbage, residual waste that the body simply could not use.
Okay, but doesn't the body naturally get rid of waste? I mean, we sweat, we use the bathroom, we exhale. Isn't that enough?
According to this text, absolutely not. Natural evacuation, like going to the bathroom, only gets rid of the most obvious superficial waste from that first stage in the stomach and intestines.
Right.
But what about the residual waste trapped deep in the tissues? The waste left over from the liver's digestion? The text warns that natural bodily functions are just insufficient to clear out this deep cellular level sludge.
So if you are eating 3 meals a day, every single day, and your body is never fully clearing out the microscopic trash, it just builds up.
It accumulates. And this is where the medical anxiety of the ancient world really kicks in. The text warns that if left untreated, this accumulated waste literally putrefies inside you. It rots.
Oh, wow. That is a terrifying image. You just have rotting sludge trapped in your muscles.
Yeah, and it causes severe diseases of putrefaction. If it accumulates in a specific body part, it induces painful swellings and inflammation. But here's the most fascinating, almost philosophical part of the danger. As this waste rots, it releases gases and vapors.
Like internal smog.
Exactly. And the text states that these vapors rise up and literally corrupt the temperament of the spirit.
Okay, let's pause there because corrupting the spirit sounds like an exorcism, not a medical diagnosis. What do they mean by the spirit in this context?
It's a great clarification to make, definitely. In this medical model, the spirit or the pneuma isn't a ghost or a soul in the religious sense. It is a highly refined, vaporous substance that carries life, sensation, and movement through the body.
Like an energy current.
Yes, think of it like the electrical current running through your nervous system. It is the absolute essence of your vitality.
So you have this incredibly pure, vital electrical current keeping you alive. But because you aren't clearing out the waste from your lunch, rotting garbage gases are seeping into that current and polluting it.
Exactly. Your vital energy is being poisoned from the inside out by your own digestive leftovers.
If I thought I had rotting garbage gases polluting my vital energy, my first instinct would probably be to take some kind of intense medicine. Like, I don't know, a modern detox cleanse. Some kind of ancient laxative or a potion to just flush my system out. Did they have pills for that?
They absolutely had medicines that could induce a massive evacuation of the bowels or cause violent vomiting. But here is the brilliant twist in this text. It vehemently warns against using them for general maintenance.
Really?
Yeah, the author explicitly states that these waste products have to be removed, but doing so through what they call poisonous drugs is incredibly dangerous.
Why? If the goal is to get the waste out, why not take the fast track?
Because it is a violent, indiscriminate process. The text actually cites the famous ancient Greek physician Hippocrates to back this up. It quotes him saying that drugs purge and derange.
Purge and derange. That is one hell of a side effect warning to put on a medicine bottle.
It is, and it's totally accurate to their framework. A strong purgative drug doesn't just magically target the bad, rotting waste. It acts like a flood. It flushes out the bad sludge, yes, but it also strips away the good, healthy humors.
Collateral damage.
Right. It flushes out the innate moisture that keeps your joints lubricated, and worst of all, it flushes out that vital spirit we just talked about. It completely deranges the natural balance of the entire ecosystem.
Wow. Okay, it's like if you have a house that is full of dust, and instead of sweeping it, you just detonate a bomb in the living room? Yeah, sure, the dust is gone, but you also blew out the windows and destroyed the furniture.
That is a perfect analogy. The chemical purge weakens the foundational strength of the main organs. So, if drugs are off the table for daily maintenance, what is the alternative? How do you sweep the house without blowing it up?
Exercise.
Exactly. Exercise is positioned in this text as the ultimate foundational preventative measure against the accumulation of waste. It is a mechanical flush rather than a chemical purge.
But how does moving my arms and legs mechanically flush out waste that is trapped deep inside my liver or my tissues?
It all comes down to the mechanics of a concept called innate heat. The ancients believed that every living creature has a central internal fire, an innate heat that keeps them alive and drives all bodily processes, especially digestion.
like a literal internal furnace.
Yes. And when you exercise, the physical friction of your muscles moving, your lungs expanding, and your blood pumping, well, it acts like a bellows on that internal furnace. It induces a gentle, controlled heat that daily melts and decomposes that accumulated waste.
So exercise isn't just about burning calories. It's a daily, internal controlled burn of the garbage.
Precisely. The movement physically amplifies the innate heat. It strengthens the joints so they don't accumulate sludge. It prepares the organs to be empty and ready to accept new food. And crucially, it opens the pores of the skin.
Ah, so the waste has an exit route. You melt the sludge with the heat of exercise, and then it literally evaporates out through your open pores as sweat.
That is exactly the mechanism. And there is a truly striking detail in the source material about what happens if you decide to just become a couch potato and abandon exercise entirely.
Right, the text says that abandoning exercise can literally cause something called a hectic fever. Which sounds like a contradiction.
Yeah.
You know, if I am sitting still, why am I getting a fever?
Because if you stop moving, that innate heat, your internal furnace starts to die down. The bellows stop pumping. When the heat drops, the digestive waste stops melting and it starts piling up rapidly.
And then what?
Well, the organ's faculties weaken because they aren't receiving the vital spirit that movement brings. And eventually, that massive pile of rotting waste spontaneously combusts into a sick, unnatural heat. That is the hectic fever. It is the heat of putrefaction, not the heat of vitality.
That is wild. It basically says if you stop moving, the instrument of life itself starts to rust and rot from the inside out.
Which is exactly why we need to look at how exactly they were moving. Because
Yeah.
as exercise is the vital engine that burns off this digestive sludge, the ancients didn't just tell people to, like, go for a jog. They had a highly specific, deeply intentional menu of physical activities.
Yeah, the text offers a wildly varied menu of workouts, and the way they categorize them is so fascinating. They have what we would recognize today as strenuous exercises. You know, wrestling, boxing, jumping, throwing, playing with a racket or bat. There's one that sounds exactly like modern suicide sprints.
Oh, yeah, the field sprinting.
Yeah, sprinting back and forth in a field.
Yeah.
You decrease the distance every single time you turn around.
Which is an incredibly demanding cardiovascular workout.
Absolutely. They also have things like shadow chasing, which sounds a bit mysterious, and standing on your toes while fast clapping your hands in front of and behind your body.
Yeah.
I mean, try doing that for 5 minutes. Your calves will be on fire.
Oh, definitely.
But then, there are exercises prescribed for specific organs. And this is where my mind was just totally blown. The text lists loud and sharp reading as an exercise. How on earth does reading a book count as a chest workout?
To understand this, you have to remember how literal the ancients were about organ movement and physical friction. Today, we think of reading aloud as a vocal or mental activity. They viewed it as a mechanical stressor on the physical tissues of the respiratory system.
So it's not about what you are reading, it's about the physical act of producing the sound.
Exactly. The chest and respiratory organs are exercised by the vibration and physical expansion required to make sound. The text specifically prescribes alternating between deep, booming sounds and loud, sharp, high-pitched sounds, or mixing the two together.
What does making a sharp, high-pitched sound physically do to my humors?
By forcing air rapidly through the vocal cords to hit a sharp note, the text claims you are creating internal friction. You are physically exercising the muscles of the mouth, the uvula, the tongue, and the text even claims it exercises the eyes.
Wait, the eyes? From reading out loud?
Yes, because the exertion and pressure of forcing out a loud, sharp sound pushes blood and vital spirit up into the head and face. Have you ever seen an opera singer hit a high note?
Yeah, their face flushes. Their eyes bulge slightly.
Exactly. The ancients saw that as a rush of vital heat that cleanses the upper passages and improves the color of the skin.
And the deep sounds, what do those do?
The deep, booming sounds require taking a massive, deep breath, holding it momentarily, and then a slow, controlled exhale. This physically stretches the lungs, exercises the whole body, and enlarges the internal passages so that waste can flow out more easily.
Okay, that makes a bizarre kind of sense. But there was a massive warning label attached to this vocal workout in the text.
Yes, there is. Enlarging the voice for a very long time is considered extremely dangerous.
Because it would just tire you out.
Well, because it puts dangerous stress on the entire pneumatic system, the flow of that vital spirit. Prolonging a loud voice requires intense inhaling and exhaling. If you do it too much, or without preparation, you risk rupturing vessels or creating too much internal heat in the head, which could lead to vertigo or worse.
So what is the protocol then?
The text mandates a strict warm-up routine. You must start with Easy, quiet reading. You slowly introduce more air, gradually raising the volume of the voice. It is deemed safe for a moderate amount of time, but prolonging it endlessly is dangerous, even for perfectly healthy people.
Which, honestly, modern vocal coaches would totally agree with. You don't just walk out and start screaming at the top of your lungs without warming up your vocal cords. It's amazing to see that mapped out hundreds of years ago.
It really is.
But let's shift gears, because while boxing and loud singing make sense for healthy people, what about people who are sick? The text has a whole section on gentle sports.
Yes, for people who are weak, those recovering from fevers, or individuals suffering from diseases of the diaphragm, strenuous exercise would extinguish their already weakened innate heat. They need movement that doesn't require their own physical exertion.
And their solution for this is swinging. The text literally prescribes swinging in a cradle or a hammock. You can do it standing, sitting, or lying down. And it claims this gentle swinging brings on sleep, breaks down gases in the digestive tract, and improves the recovery of head diseases like absent-mindedness and forgetfulness. I have to ask, how does swinging cure forgetfulness?
It is a beautiful testament to how physical motion was seen as deeply connected to neurological and psychological states. They believe that forgetfulness or absent-mindedness was often caused by cold, thick humors like phlegm pooling in the brain and slowing down the vital spirit.
Like brain fog, but they thought it was actual physical fog in the skull.
Precisely. Now, if the person is too weak to run or box to melt that fog, moving their body through space passively in a swing gently stirs and settles those internal humors. The rhythmic motion physically sloshes the internal fluids, encouraging the thick humors to break apart and move down and out of the head, clearing the mind.
It's like gently shaking a snow globe to get the flakes to disperse.
Exactly. The text also notes that swinging while lying down is specifically prescribed for people with gout and kidney diseases because the gentle motion encourages harmful humors pooled in the joints or lower back to gently dislodge and leave the body.
They also mention riding in a carriage, but specifically riding a carriage while facing backward, which they claim benefits vanishing eyesight. Again, why facing backward?
Well, if you ride facing forward in an open carriage, the rushing wind hits your face. In ancient medicine, a cold wind hitting the eyes would cause the humors in the eye to thicken and freeze, worsening vision.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. By facing backward, you still get the gentle, physical jostling of the carriage ride, which stirs the internal heat, but you protect the delicate moisture of the eyes from the cold wind.
That is incredibly logical. But I have to push back on the most surprising prescription in this entire section. We've talked about swinging and carriage rides, but then the text brings up sailing.
Ah, yes, the aquatic regimen.
Specifically, sailing in high, dangerous waves. The text claims this can cure leprosy, edema, and apoplexy. It says that sailing near the calm shore is fine for general health, but riding the sea in massive high waves has a much stronger effect on recovery from these severe diseases. And the reason it gives completely threw me.
What'd it say?
It says, high-wave sailing works because it puts the individual in different moods of happiness and sadness.
Wait, what?
How on earth did they link an emotional roller coaster ride on a boat to curing leprosy, which is a physical, bacterial infection of the skin and nerves?
This is where we really have to stretch our modern minds to understand their worldview. We tend to strictly separate the physical body from the emotional mind. If you are sad, you go to a therapist. If you have leprosy, you go to a dermatologist.
Right. The two have nothing to do with each other.
But the ancients absolutely did not separate them. In humoral theory, emotions are physical events. Intense emotional shifts radically alter the body's internal heat and humors.
Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that. I am on a boat. A massive wave is coming at me. I am terrified. What is happening to my humors?
When you experience profound terror, like staring down a rogue wave, your innate heat and your vital spirit instantly retreat from the surface of your skin and rush inward to the core of your body to protect your heart and vital organs. You turn pale. You feel cold.
That is the sadness or fear the text mentions.
Yes, but then the boat crests the wave. You survive. You feel a massive wave of relief and joy.
The happiness.
Exactly. In that moment of intense joy, the vital spirit and the innate heat explode back outward from your core, rushing back to the surface of the skin, flushing your face with blood.
So your internal heat is violently rushing in and out.
You are essentially shocking the system. Deep-seated, stubborn diseases like leprosy or edema were believed to be caused by incredibly thick, cold, stagnant humors lodged deep in the tissues. Gentle swinging won't dislodge them. But the profound, violent physiological response to terror and relief, that massive rushing of blood and heat back and forth, was seen as a powerful enough force to literally blast those stagnant diseases out of the tissues.
Wow, it is literally exposure therapy for your humors. You are using adrenaline and fear to force your internal ecosystem to reset itself. That is just incredible. But moving on, the text makes it very clear that you can't just jump into a boat or start shadow chasing whenever you feel like it. They had highly specific protocols for before and after the workout.
Timing was everything in this regimen. If you exercise at the wrong time, you aren't just wasting a workout, you are actively poisoning yourself.
Right. The text states you can only start exercising when your body is completely free of something called raw and bad chyme in the viscera.
Chyme being that initial soup-like mixture of partially digested food in the stomach and early intestines.
So what happens if I eat a big meal, my stomach is full of raw chyme, and I immediately go out and start sprinting or wrestling?
Think about the mechanics we just discussed. Exercise induces heat, opens the pores, and pulls fluids through the body. If you exercise while full of raw, undigested chyme, the innate heat of the exercise will grab that raw food and violently pull it into the veins and tissues before it has been properly cooked and purified by the liver.
Oh, so instead of pulling pure nutrition into my muscles, I am pulling raw, rotting food directly into my bloodstream.
Exactly. You will spread bad material throughout your entire body, causing blockages, swellings, and fevers. You must wait until the digestion is complete.
But how do they know? I mean, they didn't have Apple Watches tracking their digestion. They didn't have internal monitors.
They had the ultimate ancient diagnostic tool, uroscopy, the observation of urine.
The urine clock. This is so fascinating to me.
It was a highly developed science. The maturation of urine, specifically its texture, clarity, and color, was the primary indicator of what was happening inside the liver and the veins.
So what were they looking for?
When you first eat, your urine might be pale and thin, meaning the food is still raw. As digestion progresses, the urine changes. When it reaches a moderate, mature color and texture, it signals that the first phase of digestion is complete and the pure nutrients are ready to be used. That is the exact moment you are allowed to start exercising.
But it is a tightrope walk, isn't it? Because the text says if you wait too long, it is equally dangerous.
Yes. If you wait too long after eating, the digestion is entirely complete, and all the nutrients have already been absorbed or passed. The text notes that at this point, the yellowness of the urine becomes much darker than normal,
Why does it get darker?
due to an increase in what the text calls its fieriness. When the stomach and liver are empty of food, the innate heat has nothing to work on, so it starts burning the body's own humors, making the internal environment hot, dry, and fiery.
So you are basically running on fumes.
Exactly. And exercising at this specific time is incredibly harmful. If you fan the flames of the internal fire with exercise when there is no fuel, meaning food left, the fire will consume your vital spirit. It will drain your innate heat and wither the body.
So you shouldn't work out completely empty-stomached. The text actually says if you absolutely must exercise when you are empty, it is better to eat a little bit of food first to protect your internal moisture. It even specifies the type of food based on the season.
Right.
Dense, heavy food in the winter to provide a slow-burning fuel, and light, moist food in the summer.
Which brings us to the seasonal timing of the workouts, because the ambient temperature of the world outside deeply impacts the innate heat inside. Right. You can't just work out at 5 p.m. every day all year round. The rules are strict. Midday in the spring, early morning in the summer, and in the winter you do it in the evening, and specifically inside a warmed room.
Right, because in the summer, the outside heat is already intense. If you exercise at midday, the combination of the external sun and your internal exercise fire will overwhelm your system and cause a fever. So you exercise early while the air is cool.
Makes sense.
And in winter, the cold air pushes your innate heat deep inside your body. You need the external warmth of a heated room plus the exercise to coax that heat back out to the limbs.
Okay, so I've checked my urine, I checked the season, I start my workout. How do I know when to stop? Because they didn't do 3 sets of 10. They didn't count reps.
They monitored the physiological output in real time. The text lists 3 crucial factors for knowing exactly when to stop a workout. First, your skin color must be improving, flushed and rosy, meaning the vital spirit is flowing. Second, your movements must remain light and energetic. Third, your organs and muscles should be continuing to swell slightly from the blood flow, the ancient pump.
Precisely. But the moment any of those conditions reverse, if your movements become sluggish or your muscles lose their swell, you must stop. However, the ultimate non-negotiable stop sign is your sweat.
This part is wild. It says you must stop exercising the exact moment your sweat changes from vapor to liquid.
Yes. Remember, the goal of exercise is to gently melt the residual waste so it evaporates out of the pores as a vapor. You shouldn't even really see it.
But the second I see a physical drop of liquid sweat roll down my forehead, what does that mean?
It means you have pushed the internal fire too far. The gentle melting is turned into violent boiling. The body is no longer just exhaling vaporous waste. It is hemorrhaging its vital, innate moisture.
Hmm.
The moment the sweat turns to liquid drops, the exercise has crossed from beneficial to destructive. You must stop immediately.
You stop mid-sprint. You are done. And what do you do then? You don't just hit the showers. You go to a confined room and rub diaphoretic oil all over your body to induce further gentle perspiration. Which brings us to the next massive phase of the routine, the massage.
This was not a luxury spa day. This was a highly calibrated medical manipulation of the flesh and humors.
I was blown away by the complexity of this. The text outlines 9 different variations of massage. It is essentially a matrix combining different pressures and speeds. You have hard, soft, moderate, and excessive techniques.
And each type does something mechanically different to the physical tissues. The ancients viewed human flesh almost like clay or dough. Hard massage binds and firms up the body, condensing the tissue. Soft massage relaxes it, loosening the tissue.
And the duration matters too. Excessive massage, doing it for a very long time, reduces weight, I assume, by literally squeezing and sweating the moisture out of the body over time. Moderate massage increases fertility and vitality, and they even had different textures. Smooth massaging with a flat palm confines blood in a specific body part, while rough massaging with coarse towel brings blood rapidly to the surface.
It is essentially a targeted delivery system for blood and heat.
They practically invented the sports massage. Because the text says there's a prepping massage before you work out. It starts soft to warm up the tissue, and then becomes hard to firm up the muscles before the sport. And then there is the restorative or calming massage after exercise.
The restorative massage is crucial. Even if you stopped exercising the moment your sweat turned liquid, there is still some residual waste that was melted by the exercise but didn't quite make it out of the pores. It is now trapped in the muscle fibers.
Like lactic acid today.
Sort of, yes. The gentle restorative massage physically squeezes and disperses that trapped waste so it doesn't settle and cause soreness.
But there is a massive red flag in the text about this specific type of massage. A severe warning regarding who should receive it.
Yes, the text issues a very strict warning against giving children these restorative, hard massages.
Why? I mean, kids run around, they get tired. Wouldn't a massage help them?
This is where we see their deep, albeit misunderstood, caution regarding human physical development. The text warns that excessive or hard massage literally hinders a child's physical growth. It prevents them from growing taller or wider.
What is the mechanism behind that? How does rubbing a child's shoulders stunt their growth?
Go back to the idea of flesh as clay. A child's body is in a state of rapid flux and expansion. Their tissues are naturally soft, moist, and porous, which allows the innate heat to push the body outward, making it grow. If you subject a child to a hard, firming massage, you are mechanically compressing their tissues.
You are packing the clay too tight.
Exactly. You increase the density of the flesh, closing the pores and hardening the structure. If the flesh becomes dense and hard too early, the internal forces of growth cannot push through it. The child's natural expansion is physically stunted.
That is fascinating logic. It is totally wrong by modern biological standards, but within their framework, it makes perfect cohesive sense.
It demonstrates profound observation interpreted through a different lens.
Now, for adults, the post-massage routine is intense. You don't just get off the table and leave. After the restorative massage, you have to stretch out your body parts and then literally wrap your limbs in bandages while they are stretched.
Again, manipulating pressure.
And while you are wrapping your limbs, you have to hold your breath as much as physically possible and simultaneously relax your abdominal muscles. And then between doing all of this, you walk around, you lie down, and you literally entangle your legs with another person. I can't even picture what this room looks like. It sounds like a chaotic yoga studio.
It sounds chaotic to us, but every action is engineered to manipulate the internal pressure of the body. Think about holding your breath. When you inhale deeply and trap the air, you change the internal pneumatic pressure of your chest and abdomen.
Right, your face turns red, you feel the pressure building.
That internal pressure physically squeezes the organs and pushes the vital spirit outward toward the extremities. Combined with the external pressure of the bandages on the limbs, you are essentially wringing the body out like a wet towel, forcing the absolute last remnants of exercise melted waste out of the tissues.
Okay, so after all of that, the mechanical flush of exercise, the 9 types of flesh manipulation, the breath holding and bandaging it, is finally time for the bathhouse. But again, reading this isn't just about getting clean and washing the dirt off. The bathhouse is described as architectural medicine.
The structure of the ancient bathhouse was designed to systematically manipulate the body's temperature and pores. You don't just walk into a hot room. You must move gradually between rooms of different temperatures, from the unheated changing room to the warm, tepid room to the hot, steamy room.
Because sudden temperature shifts would shock the humors dangerously.
Precisely. And you shouldn't stay in the hot room beyond the point of discomfort. But the bathhouse was also a tool for manipulating weight.
Yes. The text says if you desire to gain weight, you should bathe after a meal. Why?
Because the heat of the bath draws blood and the freshly digested nutrients from that meal directly out to the flesh and skin, plumping up the body and increasing mass.
But if you want to lose weight,
You bathe while hungry on an empty stomach, and you prolong your stay in the hot room. Without fresh food to draw outward, the heat of the bath will dissolve the body's existing fat and humors, sweating them away.
and then there are the cold plunges. This part sounded so incredibly modern to me. Plunging into freezing water is a massive trend right now, but the ancient rules for it are very strict. Washing with cold water is only for the young and the strong, and the text says you must submerge yourself all at once up to your tolerance level to avoid getting goosebumps.
Goosebumps were seen as a sign that the cold had penetrated too deeply and trapped the internal heat.
The metric they use for knowing if the cold plunge was successful is fascinating. You judge the effectiveness by observing how fast your normal skin color returns after you get out.
Exactly. If your rosy color returns quickly, it means the length of the plunge was moderate and perfect. Your innate heat successfully rebounded. If you stay pale for a long time, you stayed in the water too long, the cold damaged your innate heat, and you must reduce your time the next day.
And the mechanism they describe for why the cold plunge is good for a strong person, it sounds exactly like what modern biohackers say. Modern science says sudden cold causes vascular constriction, pushing blood to the core, which invigorates the system. The ancient text says sudden cold pushes the innate heat internally, condensing it in the core, where it strengthens multiple times over before rushing back out.
It is the exact same physiological observation, the retreat and return of blood and heat, just explained through the vocabulary of humoral theory and innate heat rather than modern cardiology.
It's brilliant. Okay, so we have mechanically flushed our dusty house with exercise. We've manipulated our flesh with massage. We've wrung out our organs by holding our breath. And we've shocked our innate heat with a cold plunge. We are exhausted. We are clean. Our pores are open. Now, finally, we must eat. We have to refuel the engine.
But this is where the text gets incredibly tense.
Right, because according to the gastronomic regimen in this text, eating is basically fraught with mortal peril if done incorrectly.
The anxiety around food in this text is palpable, and it stems directly from that initial philosophy we discussed at the very beginning. The body is constantly fighting a losing battle against the waste products of digestion. Eating is necessary, but it is inherently dangerous because you are introducing raw material into a delicate ecosystem.
And the absolute greatest danger, the mortal sin of ancient eating, is excessive fullness.
Yes, absolutely.
The text actually says, and I quote, "Excessive fullness in all situations is fatal." And it highlights this terrifying historical anecdote to prove its point. It notes that there is nothing worse than fullness during a fertile, plentiful season that immediately follows a long drought. It says, physicians have literally seen men who survived a starving, scarce season, and then when the crops finally came in, they ate their fill, suffocated, and died.
It is an extreme, dramatic example, but it perfectly underscores their belief that the stomach and the processing power of the liver have strict physical limits.
How does eating too much literally suffocate you?
Think of your innate heat like a campfire. If you put a few logs on it, the fire burns bright and cooks the food. But if you dump an entire truckload of wood on that small fire all at once, what happens?
The fire is smothered. It goes out.
Exactly. Excessive food smothers the innate heat. The stomach cannot cook the massive pile of food. The food sits there, it turns cold, it putrefies, and it releases massive amounts of those toxic vapors we talked about earlier. The vapors rush up to the heart and the brain, literally suffocating the vital spirit. Sudden death by overeating.
So the goal is to eat, but never, ever overwhelm the fire. So what exactly were they supposed to put on the fire? There is a very clear hierarchy of foods in this text.
Meat and wheat are the absolute core, the gold standard of the human diet. Specifically, young goat, young beef, young lamb, and perfectly clean wheat.
Why young animals?
Because young animals are full of vital moisture and natural heat, they are perfectly balanced. An old animal is dry and tough, producing thick, melancholic humors.
Okay, meat and bread. Sounds like a classic diet. But here is the fascinating distinction that blew my mind. The text explicitly states that the essence of your food should not be medicinal foods.
Which is a crucial category to understand.
Right. And medicinal foods, in their vocabulary, means greens and fruits. Leafy vegetables, herbs, sweet fruits. This goes against literally everything we are taught by modern nutritionists.
Yeah.
Modern science says, eat a huge salad every day, make half your plate vegetables. The ancients are saying, absolutely not. Why no daily salads?
It comes back to the humors and the concept of attenuant foods.
What does attenuate mean in this context?
Attenuant means something that thins out the humors, making them volatile and sharp. Leafy greens, herbs, and many fruits are fast digesting and highly reactive. In their framework, if you eat a massive bowl of greens, it digests so quickly and violently that it chars or oxidizes the blood.
Charring the blood, like burning it.
Yes. Heavy food, like dense meat and wheat bread, provides strong, slow-burning chyme that the liver can easily turn into substantial, healthy blood to promote muscle and bone growth. Think of meat as a dense oak log on the fire. It burns slow and steady.
And the salad.
The salad is like throwing a handful of dry leaves and paper onto the fire. It flares up instantly, creates harsh, acrid smoke, and leaves nothing but ash. It creates thin, hot, choleric blood that burns the veins. Therefore, fruits and vegetables were seen largely as correctives. They were medicines used to fix a specific imbalance, not the foundation of a daily diet. If your humors were too thick, you ate some greens to thin them out. But you wouldn't build your house out of medicine.
That is such a wild paradigm shift. And the text warns that if you eat the wrong thing, you get indigestion. But ancient indigestion isn't just popping an antacid for an upset stomach. The consequences are intensely specific based on what caused the indigestion.
Exactly. Indigestion from heavy food, eating too much dense beef, gives you joint ache, gout, asthma, and hardening of the spleen.
Why the joints?
Because the heavy food, unable to be fully cooked by the overwhelmed stomach, leaves a thick, cold, muddy sludge in the veins. That heavy sludge physically sinks down and settles into the joints and lower organs, hardening into gout.
But indigestion from light food, like eating way too much fruit, causes acute, malicious fevers.
Because light food putrefies incredibly fast. It creates a hot, volatile, bubbling reaction in the stomach, sparking a sudden, acute fever that flashes through the body.
So to avoid all of this, there are strict rules. You must stop eating while there is still room in the stomach. You have to leave physical space for the digestion to bubble and move. But the scheduling of the meals is what really caught my attention.
The meal schedule is very rigid.
The ideal schedule recommended by the text is this. You eat one full meal a day, then the next day you eat 2 meals, then back to 1 meal. 1, then 2, then 1.
If we look at this through a modern lens, this is a highly structured, ancient form of intermittent fasting.
That is exactly what I thought.
The text explicitly says this rotating schedule should be strongly followed. It warns that if you get used to eating 2 full meals every single day constantly, you will eventually become weak and lose your vital strength.
Which, again, sounds counterintuitive. Why does eating more make you weak?
Because the stomach and liver need downtime to clear out the residual waste we keep talking about. If you are constantly shoveling food into the furnace every few hours, the organs never get to rest, the innate heat is constantly diverted to digestion, and the waste piles up. The 1 meal days allow the body to catch up and fully empty itself, ensuring the stomach always has the necessary processing power to completely convert the next meal.
But it's not just when you eat. It is deeply tied to who you are. We mentioned the 4 humors earlier, and diets had to be completely custom-tailored to your baseline humoral temperament.
This is personalized medicine at its peak. The 4 humors are blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Every person has a unique mix of these 4, which dictates their physical and psychological traits.
So someone with a melancholic temperament, meaning they have an excess of black bile, is naturally cold and dry.
Correct. Therefore, the text says a melancholic person must eat moist and warm foods like lamb and rich broth to counter their cold, dry nature.
A choleric person who has too much yellow bile is hot and dry. They are fiery, so they need moist and cool food to chill them out.
And a sanguine person, who is dominated by blood, is naturally hot and moist. They are robust and ruddy. Because they are already so full of rich nutrition, the text says they actually need cold, less nutritious food so they don't overfuel their already raging fire. You are constantly eating to balance the internal scales of your specific body.
Okay, so we've picked our meat based on our temperament. Now we need to talk about the mixing roles, because this is where the science of the stomach cauldron gets really intense. The text explicitly quotes experienced Indians who warn that mixing milk with acidic food, or mixing milk with fish, causes horrific diseases that include leprosy. Why fish and milk?
It comes down to the mechanical danger of creating what they called a heterogeneously digested mass.
Which means mixing foods that cook at completely different speeds.
Exactly. Every food requires a different amount of innate heat and time to digest. The text vehemently warns against eating a light, easily digested food like sweet fruit or fish in the exact same meal as a strong, hard food like dense beef.
Right, because think of the stomach as a literal pot on a fire.
Mm-hmm.
If you put a thick chunk of beef in the pot, it needs hours to cook. But if you throw delicate fish or fruit on top of that beef,
The fish digests almost instantly, but it is physically trapped in the stomach. It is sitting on top of the dense meat, and the pyloric valve at the bottom of the stomach won't open until the beef is done.
so the fast-digesting food has no way to exit. It
Yeah.
just sits there in the intense heat of the stomach cauldron.
And because it is fully digested but trapped in the heat, it begins to overcook. It ferments. It literally putrefies. And as that fruit or fish rots on top of the beef, it ruins the entire batch. It corrupts the humors and taints the chyme of the beef.
And the text notes that athletes in the old days figured this out. It says ancient athletes got around this problem by eating only meat for lunch and only bread at dinner. They were literally mono-dieting to ensure uniform digestion in the stomach.
It makes a strange, brilliant, kind of mechanical sense. You don't mix fast cooking and slow cooking ingredients in the same pot if you can't stir them or take them out at different times.
So we have eaten our carefully unmixed meal. We had our beef for lunch, nothing else. Now, obviously, we are thirsty. But drinking water and wine comes with its own massive set of regulations.
Yes, the liquid regimen. It is important to understand that in ancient medicine, water was not viewed as nutrition. Water does not feed the body.
Which is so different from today, where we are told to drink a gallon of water a day for hydration and cellular health.
The ancients viewed water purely as a physical vehicle. It is a transporter. It thins the food and carries it through the veins. Because of this, it has a profound impact on the internal temperature and the physical movement of food. For instance, the text has a very specific, dire warning about the temperature of water, specifically ice water.
Yes, it says water made from melted ice is explicitly labeled as harmful to the nerves and the respiratory organs. It says it is only tolerated by extreme sanguine temperaments, those super hot, robust people, and even then, drinking ice water will catch up to them in old age and cause nerve damage.
Because extreme cold paralyzes the delicate nerves and extinguishes the innate heat of the stomach.
But the absolute biggest rule about water isn't the temperature. It is when to drink it. The text commands that you must never drink water with your food. You do not drink a glass of water while eating dinner.
Drinking water with food is considered extremely harmful, and again, it comes back to water's role as a transporter. Water is digested and absorbed by the stomach almost immediately.
So if I take a huge bite of beef and then chug a glass of water to wash it down,
The water physically washes that raw, unchewed, undigested beef out of the stomach and flushes it directly into the intestines and veins way too early.
the text calls it obstruction. The water pushes these massive raw food molecules into the narrow arteries where they get stuck. And what happens when raw food gets stuck in a warm artery?
It putrefies. It rots in the vein, causing massive edema, inflammation, and diseases like scabies, as the body tries to push the rotting matter out through the skin.
So if I can't drink with my meal, when am I allowed to drink?
You have to wait until the food has fully cooked in the stomach and naturally moved down into the intestines. The text says you know this has happened when you feel a sense of lightness in the upper belly. Only then can you drink water to help carry the digested chyme to the liver.
But what if I am eating a dry piece of bread and I'm desperately thirsty during the meal?
The text offers a concession. If you are desperately thirsty, you are only allowed to suck a little bit of cold water, drop by drop, just enough to flatten and contract the stomach, but not enough to wash the food away.
Just wetting the whistle. Now, water is heavily regulated, but wine, on the other hand, is treated entirely differently.
Yes. Water is a vehicle. Wine is classified as a highly effective, powerful humoral medicine.
They prescribe wine in this text like a modern doctor prescribes aspirin. It says wine is the absolute best facilitator for making food penetrate to all parts of the body. It cuts through thick phlegm, and it literally slips out black bile easily.
Because wine has its own innate heat. It acts as a solvent. It melts thick, stagnant humors and thins the blood, allowing nutrition to reach the furthest capillaries of the body.
But just like food, the wine must be tailored to the specific body. Gentle white wine is for warm, delicate people. Thick, sweet, dark wine is for people who want to gain weight and build strength because it creates thick blood. Aged red wine is suitable for someone with a cold, phlegmatic temperament because the aging process makes the wine hotter.
The text actually notes a distinct difference between fresh wine and aged wine. Fresh wine is still fermenting, it is volatile, harmful to the liver, and causes hyperactivity and gas. Aged wine has stabilized its heat, so it is basically a pure medicine, not a type of food.
So they are drinking wine for health, which means they drank a lot, and inevitably they got drunk. And my absolute favorite part of this entire text is the incredibly sophisticated ancient science of hangover cures. They actually had pre-game hacks to control inebriation.
Yes, the preventative measures against drunkenness.
If you know you are going to a banquet and you want to slow down drunkenness, the text says you do this. Before you drink alcohol, you mix 1 part white cabbage water, 1 part acidic pomegranate juice, and half a part vinegar. You boil it together, and you drink it first thing in the morning.
It sounds like a terrible cocktail, but the mechanics of why they believe this worked are absolutely fascinating. It all has to do with how they believed alcohol intoxicated the brain.
Right. They didn't know about blood alcohol content. They viewed alcohol intoxication as a vaporous process.
Exactly. When wine hits the heat of the stomach, it releases hot, volatile fumes. These fumes literally ascend upward through the body and penetrate the brain. A weak, cold brain accepts these hot, ascending fumes easily. The humors in the head get scrambled, and the person gets drunk fast.
So how does cabbage water stop the fumes?
They believe that viscous, fatty foods and specific astringent items like cabbage seeds, cumin, and pennyroyal had the physical ability to concentrate or trap the alcohol vapors in the stomach.
So the cabbage juice acts like a lid on the pot. Its astringent properties physically tighten the stomach lining and trap the fumes, preventing them from ascending to the brain, slowing down the absorption.
That is exactly the logic. You are keeping the toxic vapors trapped below the diaphragm.
On the flip side, what if they needed to get someone heavily drunk very quickly, say for a painful medical treatment or an amputation, since they didn't have modern anesthesia?
They had recipes for that as well. To induce rapid, deep intoxication, they would soak lichens or aromatic agar wood in the wine to speed the vapors to the head. Or, for true anesthetic purposes, they would mix darnel water, opium, and henbane into the drink.
An ancient, potent anesthetic cocktail. But let's say it's just a normal Friday night and someone accidentally gets way too drunk at the banquet.
Right.
The sobering up protocol is intense.
You have to rapidly cool the head and neutralize the ascending hot vapors.
The text says you give the drunk person water mixed with vinegar 3 times in a row to cut the heat. You make them drink onion juice and sour milk. You have them sniff cold aromatics like camphor and sandalwood to physically cool the brain. And if all else fails, you induce vomiting to get the wine out of the cauldron, you cover them in cooling oil, and you put them to sleep.
Which perfectly transitions us into the final phase of the ancient regimen. The day is over, the heavy meal is digesting, the wine is settling. Now it is time to sleep and repair the body's wear and tear.
But just like eating and exercising, sleep in this medical philosophy is not a passive activity. It is not just turning off the brain and resting. Sleep is an active, physical, humoral process.
Yes, sleep is fundamentally viewed as a deeply moistening and warming agent.
How does lying still with your eyes closed create moisture?
Think about what happens when you sleep. You stop interacting with the outside world. Your sensory organs shut down. Therefore, your innate heat and your vital spirit stop rushing out to the extremities to deal with the external environment. They retreat deep into the core of your body.
And when the heat retreats to the core, what does it do?
It focuses entirely on digestion and cellular repair. It cooks the food perfectly, creating rich, moist, healthy blood that slowly steeps the internal organs. Sleep prevents the disintegration of the vital spirit by keeping it safely inside.
The text notes that this moistening effect is exactly why the elderly need sleep the most. Because in ancient medicine, aging is viewed as a process of slowly drying out. An old body is a dry, brittle body.
To illustrate this, the text shares a wonderful practical anecdote about the famous ancient physician Galen. In his old age, Galen suffered from insomnia due to his dry, aging temperament. To induce sleep, he would eat a large portion of lettuce before bed.
Because lettuce is cold and moist, so it cools the hot, waking brain.
Exactly. But there is a catch. The raw coldness of lettuce is too harsh for an old, weak stomach. So Galen would cook the lettuce first. He used the innate cold, moist properties of the lettuce to induce the sleepiness, but he used the warmth of the cooking process to balance out the vegetable, protecting his fragile stomach.
It is a perfect, personalized, humoral prescription. He recognized his aging body needed the moistening benefit of sleep, and he biohacked his dinner to get it. But you can't just nap whenever you want to get this moisture. The text states that daytime sleeping is disastrous.
Sleeping during the day, when the sun is up and the body's heat should naturally be outward, confuses the humors.
It says daytime naps cause diseases of humidity, laziness of the nerves, sluggishness, and fevers. But when you do sleep at night, the physical posture you take is heavily regulated. You have to follow a strict positional routine.
This is one of the most mechanically fascinating parts of the text.
It says you must start your sleep lying on your right side for a while. Then you physically roll over and switch to your left side. And then before you wake up, you switch back to your right side. Why this specific rotation?
You have to think about the anatomical layout of the internal organs. The stomach is not a perfectly symmetrical pouch. It sits slightly off-center. The liver, which is massive and hot, sits on the right side. The ancients understood that digestion was a physical gravitational process.
Right. So by starting on the right side, what are you doing?
When you lie on your right side, the heavy, food-filled stomach physically rests down onto the hot liver. The liver acts like a hot plate, warming the stomach and starting the digestion. Then you roll to the left side. This physically sloshes the contents of the stomach, mixing the food and digestive juices, ensuring the heavier, undigested elements settle to the bottom where the heat is strongest.
It's literally like they viewed the stomach as a concrete mixer. You have to physically rotate the body to coat the insides evenly and ensure a uniform mix.
And then you roll back to the right side to let the perfectly mixed chyme easily empty out of the stomach valve into the intestines. It is gravity-assisted digestion.
And the text says sleeping face down on your stomach is actually good because the bed and blankets trap your body heat against your belly, keeping the digestion warm. But sleeping on your back. The text issues a severe warning. It says sleeping flat on your back is absolutely terrible. It is of low quality and helps induce bad diseases like sudden death, palsy, and nightmare.
Again, the reasoning is purely mechanical and gravitational.
Walk me through it. I am lying flat on my back. Why am I having nightmares and risking sudden death?
We established earlier that the body is constantly trying to vent residual waste vapors. Normally, these vapors rise and exit through the frontal ducts, the nostrils, the mouth, the pores of the chest. If you lie flat on your back, gravity pulls those heavy toxic humors and rotting vapors backward.
Away from the exits?
Exactly. They gather and get physically stuck in the back of the body. They pool in the spine and the base of the brain. When toxic, rotting vapors pool in the brain, they corrupt the vital spirit, which distorts your imagination, causing horrific nightmares. And if enough thick humor pools in the spinal cord, it blocks the electrical current of the spirit, leading to physical paralysis or palsy.
It traps the bad humors in your central nervous system. That is a terrifying thought to fall asleep to.
But eventually, morning comes, you wake up.
And when you wake up, you assess how you feel. Specifically, you assess your fatigue from the previous day's exercise and labor. And this is the final profound insight from the text. They didn't just wake up and say, "Oh, my legs are tired." They had an incredibly nuanced, multisensory understanding of fatigue. They categorized it into 4 distinct physical types.
Yes, because different types of fatigue mean different types of waste are trapped in the tissue, requiring a different cure.
Right. There is soreness fatigue, which the text says is felt right on the outer surface of the skin.
Soreness fatigue is caused by thin, sharp wastes that have been pushed out of the deep muscle but got trapped just under the skin in the superficial vessels. It requires a soft massage to gently coax it out of the pores.
Then there is expandedness fatigue,
Yeah.
which feels like the body has been physically beaten with a stick.
This is a deeper issue. This is caused by massive amounts of thick waste trapped deep inside the muscle fibers, physically expanding the muscle from the inside out. This requires a hard restorative massage to crush the trapped waste and force it out.
Then they describe swollenness fatigue. This is where the muscle is actually visibly warmer and physically distended, puffy.
Swollenness means the humors have putrefied and caused an acute inflammation. You wouldn't massage this hard, you would need cooling agents and gentle baths to draw the heat out.
And finally, there is dryness fatigue. This feels like severe brittleness in the limbs, like your bones might snap.
Dryness fatigue occurs when you exercise too much in dry, hot air or use too much rough massage, and you literally sweated away your vital innate moisture. The joints are dry. The cure for this isn't massage, it is rest, rich, moist food, and sleep to rebuild the fluids.
The level of physical awareness here is astounding. It shows how intimately they listen to the subtle signals of their own flesh. They didn't just feel tired, they felt specific humoral imbalances manifesting as different textures of fatigue in the muscle fiber. And they knew exactly which type of massage or which temperature of bath or which food was required to fix that exact specific texture.
It reveals the grand, interconnected strategy of their entire existence. In this ancient framework, you are never just living a passive life. Every single action you take, the temperature of the water you step into, the exact sequence of turning from your right side to your left side in bed, the exact moment to stop sprinting when a bead of sweat rolls down your face, whether you eat the fish before the beef, all of it is part of a lifelong, highly calibrated chess match against the accumulation of rotting waste and the loss of your innate heat.
It is mind-blowing. We have spent this entire deep dive unpacking just a fraction of this ancient text, and honestly, it is impossible not to marvel at the intricate, interlocking logic of it all. Even when the biology is completely foreign to us, even when we know that mixing milk and fish doesn't literally cause leprosy, the system itself makes perfect, beautiful sense.
It really leaves us with a provocative thought to mull over as we navigate our modern world. Today, we're surrounded by technology that tracks our health. We have wearable tech strapped to our wrists, we have rings that monitor our sleep, we have apps telling us our exact heart rate, tracking our REM sleep cycles, graphing our blood oxygen levels.
We have more data about our bodies than any generation in human history.
We do. Yet, despite all of that data, so many of us feel completely, profoundly disconnected from our physical bodies. The people following this ancient text didn't have smartwatches or heart rate monitors. They tracked their health by paying fierce, unwavering attention to themselves. They observed the exact thickness of their sweat. They analyzed the color and suspension of their urine. They felt the specific texture of their muscle fatigue. They even observed the emotional resonance and adrenaline spikes of a boat ride on high waves. It raises a challenging question. Are we, with our endless streams of digital data, actually paying less attention to what our bodies are actively trying to tell us than the adults who meticulously followed this ancient regimen?
That is an incredibly fascinating question to end on. You know, we started this conversation talking about modern X-ray machines and our desire for clean, binary, visible diagnoses. But stepping into the murky, highly calibrated, incredibly demanding waters of this ancient regimen shows us a completely different way of seeing ourselves. It asks us to feel the temperature of our digestion. It asks us to measure the moisture of our sleep. It demands that we respect the delicate, terrifying balance of the living ecosystem we reside inside. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We hope it gives you something profound to think about, and maybe, just maybe, it makes you think twice before you mix milk and fish or fall asleep flat on your back.